I'm excited to be here and to talk to you. I have found the talks very inspiring, and I'm only hoping that I can be as inspiring. So let me start by quickly introducing myself. I'm Hillel Forsman. I am originally from the Netherlands, but my working career has always been in England. I've worked for the NHS, so the regular mental health service, and I worked in private practice where I have employed a more holistic approach. As you can see, I've got master's degrees, that's clinical health, psychology, and I'm a CBT accredited practitioner. I'm also a shamanic healer and a family constellator. So I wanted to talk to you about systemic work. I think it's a new paradigm around understanding personality traits, interpersonal issues, and mental health issues. And I will tell you why. Let me start by giving you 3 examples. Let me start with James. James is always late. He misses flights, he misses deadlines, he loses out on a lot of money. His friends say, well, that's James. Then we have Charles. Charles is incredibly meticulous. And if you stop him from being meticulous, he gets highly anxious. Then we have, how did I call her? Rosie. Rosie is chronically depressed, and she has had all the treatments, she's taken all the medications, and nothing will help her. She still thinks she's unlovable, and she's not quite everything. So, in regular medicine, these would be considered personality traits, non-compliant, treatment-resistant, chronic. What if I told you that James's grandfather missed a train? And because he missed a train, he missed a boat. The date was the 10th of April, 1912. And you may guess which boat he missed. He missed the Titanic. So, and James is an actual patient of mine, right? So, in James's family, being late is synonymous with life, living. Had his grandfather not missed that boat, James would not have been alive, right? Similar with Charles. Charles's grandfather, was a fine young man during the Second World War. The Nazis were after him to work in a labour camp. So when they'd been knocking on the door, his sister got the instructions to keep the Nazis talking for 2 minutes, so he would have 2 minutes to meticulously remove every single sign of there being a male in the house for the Nazis not to find him and shoot him for disobedience. So in Charles's family, being meticulous is synonymous with, or not being allowed to be meticulous is synonymous with terror and death. And then we have Rosie. Rosie's father had to fight in the Vietnam War. He didn't want to, he had to go. His helmet says, war is hell. He had to shoot Viet Cong in order to stay alive himself. And he lost a lot of comrades. So what happened? He comes home, he feels terrible. He's a bad person, he's murdered people. He's lost his comrades, he doesn't deserve to live. Makes sense, right? So there's 3 examples. What do they have in common? I think it's quite clear. We can inherit trauma, especially when we say, I'm being silly. Other people have it so much worse than me. I had a great childhood. I don't know where this comes from. When things are chronic, usually that means we're addressing the wrong problem. So, and you would say, of course we inherit trauma, right? Charles's grandfather was super meticulous, so he raises his children to be meticulous because there's terror involved, and then the children raise Charles to be meticulous, so nurture, right? Everybody knows nurture. However, recently, animal studies have found, Brian Dyers and Kerry Resler have found epigenetic changes in animal studies after a stressful event, not in mice themselves early, but in their offspring, and even more so in the 2nd generation. The cortisol levels were the highest in the 2nd generation, without ever having been exposed to that same stressor. Later, there's been human studies as well. We've got Rachel Yehuda as Professor of Psychiatry and Neuroscience in Mount Sinai. We've got Elizabeth Binder, she's a neuroscientist and director of the Max Planck Institute, so not the worst, not the least. And Moshe Zif, he's a geneticist in the School for Biomedical Sciences at McGill. They have actually found epigenetic changes in people whose parents or grandparents had been in natural disasters, stressful periods, trauma, war, etc. They could even indicate if from the genetic changes, if their ancestor, for instance, had been in a famine. See that? So, what does that mean about our mental health policy? I think it means we need to look at the root cause. Why are people struggling with what they're struggling with? I don't think it's negative thoughts, I don't think it's self-sabotaging, because where do they come from? Why, if somebody's anxious, why does the one person present with OCD? Why does the other get burnout? And why does the third get panic attacks? They're all anxious disorders. I think there is vital information in why, in the manifestation of the symptoms. If we look at what I call unprocessed trauma, and this is your family tree, so you're the person in the red dot, and next to your ears are your parents, and then around your head are your grandparents, and so on, 7 generations. If we can inherit trauma, what does that mean? In this picture, there's only 6 traumas in the family, which I think is not a lot. I don't think that's very realistic, right? So what does that mean to the way we are dealing with life? Our personality traits, the things we're struggling with, the things we find hard to deal with. I think we have a lot on our plates, and I think conventional treatment in that sense helps us deal with the symptoms, but it doesn't uproot the cause. I'm going to skip this one. So before the science was known, there was this man called Gert Hellinger. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's amazing. He was amazing. He died, unfortunately, although he was very old. He worked as a priest with the Zulus in South Africa. And the Zulus looked at him and he said, you know, all this thing with God and everything, it's wonderful and it's nice, but you're forgetting the most important thing. I was like, what's that? They said, you're forgetting the ancestors. And he was intrigued, and he listened to them, and he spoke with them, and he learned from them. And then he left the order, and he studied to become a psychotherapist. And he studied about 6 or 7 different schools, so he integrated a whole bunch of approaches with which he devised family constellations, or what we call systemic work. And by doing that, he gave us tools to analyze what is going on, why you're struggling, what is it in your ancestral line that caused that, and how to heal it. Because obviously that's what we want, right? We want understanding is nice, but we want to heal it. So, when you go to Wikipedia, they say it's quackery. I don't think they use that word, but it's not very kind about family constellations. They talk in terms of the people engaging with it are gullible and impressionable. Everything is alleged this and supposed that, and it's pseudoscience and etc. So I thought, I'm going to add some scientific evidence to that. Type. And quite chuffed myself. And a few weeks later, I check again. They've taken it off again. So somebody does not want this to be scientific. So this is how much you can read Wikipedia as well, right? Bert Hellinger told us, showed us how to deal with transgenerational trauma. And in a way, the solution is very easy. What do you do when you have it? You just hand it back to who it belongs. And when you do that, the block is gone. You can reconnect to the resources, to what we call the life force, and we can heal, the behavioural change will be so much easier, sometimes even automatic, and I'll be fine. Easy, right? If it were easy, we would have done it a long time ago. Not that easy. So how do you hand these things back, and how do you know exactly what it is and how to do this? For this, we make use of what we call the knowing field. We had a wonderful lecture about the Akashic Records, which I think is exactly the same, so I'm eternally grateful to you, Melissa. I was very excited to hear your lecture. So I don't think I need to explain a lot more about this. There's been many descriptions of it. Basically, it comes down to this massive storage of memory that we just have to tap into. And then the information is available. Now, there is, I don't know if you know him, there is a scientist who has studied the knowing field or the Akashic Records. He calls it the morphogenetic energy field. It's called Richard Sheldrake. And he's written some really interesting stuff about the cusp between science and spirituality. He's a biologist, so he's a scientist, but he's been vilified by regular science. He's been attacked quite a bit. Yet I would recommend his books because they are very thought-provoking. And so he talks about the morphic fields being organising fields, and they organise animal and human behaviour, social cultural systems, and mental activity. And so according to him, because of the morphic fields, we know when to grow a tooth, when we're 1 year old. We know how to get up and start walking when we are, how old are we then, etc., etc. And so also we know how to take on from our ancestors. We need to take on that you should be afraid of snakes, right? That's the kind of trauma that you want to take on, that's adaptive. However, some traumas are not adaptive to take on. How does this work? So we've got the knowing field that we can tap into in the Akashic Records if you want to. And we do this through what we call phenomenological observation. That means you have no judgment, you just observe what's going on. And to help you with this, to do this, we have what we call representatives. These are people in a group who serve as antennas. So literally they stick out their antenna and they tap into the knowing field and feed us the information that we need to know. So there's a certain issue, we have representatives for the relevant elements in the question. And in the picture we see a person on the ground, they look dead. There's a person in green who looks like they're grieving and who's not available. Obviously this wasn't my constellation, so I'm guessing a little bit. The ladies with the red cardigans, they look like they want something from the green lady, but the green lady's not available. So we're in the analytical phase here. And the person in the blue shirt is closed off and not letting it in. Through phenomenological observation, we make the subconscious conscious. It is a tool. And so in a constellation, we ask people to represent elements. For instance, the disabled child who was forgotten in a home. She was put away and nobody thought about her anymore. It could be the rapist of your great-grandmother, who later down the line made you never have a relationship. It could be the first love of your grandfather who died, or it could be things. We can have representatives for love, life, death, curses, illnesses, whichever you need, archetypes, put anything in there, and they will start working for you. They'll start getting information. Me as a facilitator, I move them around to see if different positions in the field will make them stronger or weaker, to see if they can connect to the goodness, and I will ask them to say sentences to test out what is the truth here. I'm going to ask them to say sentences first to analyze the situation and then to heal the situation. So this might be, if you look at this picture, the lady in green saying, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there for you, I was burdened with a trauma. And often when these truths come out, we feel relief. It's there, it's been said. And so with everything I ask them to do, to move or whatever they're saying, I check with them, does this feel right when you connect to the field? Am I making sense? Does it need tweaking or is it completely wrong? So I do not put in my own judgment. I keep checking, is this the truth of the field? Now, if you think, for instance, about Rosie's example with the father who had to go to Vietnam, in her case, she'd be the issue holder. I would ask a representative for the issue holder, so one for Rosie, one for her father, one for the Viet Cong who died, or possibly 2 or 3 for the Viet Cong who died, and if I have enough, 2 or 3 for the comrades who died. When we set this up, what we saw was the Viet Cong immediately lay on the ground. The comrades immediately lay on the ground. Grandfather wanted to lay on the ground as well, and Rosie too. So, and this was interesting because they did what they did, and it's quite funny. Both the comrades and the Viet Cong started being dead, shaking. No, no, no! You mustn't lay on the ground. You have to get up, get up. Kind of acted for dead people. So I asked Rosie's father and Rosie to get up, and they said it was wonderful to lie there with them. And so I asked Rosie to say to the Viet Cong, thanks to your fate, I am now alive. And I will remember you from now on in healthy ways. And the Viet Cong were like, yes, yes. And they were quite happy to be dead. And you'll find this in family constellations, the dead are generally quite happy to be dead. So I had her talk to the comrades of the grandfather. And she said, so I will stop feeling guilty about you being dead and me being alive. Because if I'm dead now too, if I behave dead, your suffering will have been in vain. And the comrades are like, yes, yes. So with everything you said, she gained a little bit more life. And then I had her say to her grandfather, dear father, I have tried to carry it for you because I saw it was so heavy for you. We call this an entanglement. But I see now it makes me weaker and it makes you weaker. So I hand it back to you with love and respect, and I bow to your fate. And then she makes herself smaller, she bows, and by handing it back, I look at what does the field look like? Are people in agreement? And is there relief? And so when I see people with this, I know that this is right. And I'm normally a constellation like this takes about an hour and a half, so we'll be getting very concise the description of this. So this, for instance, could be an end scene, healing scene, where people are connected again. The disconnection is gone. Everybody's accepted back into the system, and the constellation is finished when the field is at peace, when the system is in rest. So, what I like about this method is anyone can do this. You don't need to be super spiritual. You don't need to have this like extra telephone line with the upstairs. I have never met anybody who couldn't do this. They don't need to know the story. In fact, it's better if they don't know the story. And what you see is that often representatives, for instance, use verbatim words. They say exactly what the person would have said, who they were representing. They move in the same way. I had somebody who was a representative who limped, and I asked the issue holder, and he said, oh yeah, my grandfather had a wooden leg. I had somebody who said, oh, I had this pain on my shoulder, it really burns. And the issue holder said, yeah, at the time that this was current, I had shingles on my left shoulder. So these things are quite striking. Secrets can come up. I had a client, an issue holder, who was dealing with rape, and the field showed that her mother had been raped, and she's entangled, and that's why she got raped as well. And she said, I don't know this. I said, go home and check. And she emailed me a few days later, she said, yeah, my mum said she didn't want to tell me to protect me, but the system knew this, the knowing field knew this, and this lady repeated the pattern and got herself raped as well. I had an experience myself. My father is the oldest of three, and in the constellation what came out, I have an older half auntie. I was like, I don't, and everybody would say, aha, and I was like, aha, so back and forth. We finished the constellation. I called my father. He would not talk about it. Big secret. I called my other one. She says, oh, did you not know? Yeah. She must be about 20 years old. I didn't know this. It came out. So interesting stuff can happen. And so I always send my people home and say, if we don't know something for sure, go and check. Go to a grandmother, go to an auntie, go to the city council, find out in files. Because obviously I need to know if I'm doing the right thing, right? And I'm not working with gullible and impressionable people and just putting in my ideas. A wonderful example that I always think, there were two sisters who hadn't spoken for 30 years and they didn't even remember why they stopped speaking. One does a constellation. A week later, her sister calls her up and says, can you talk? And I have an example myself again. I had a block about in public. Social media, nightmare with me, I would not do it. Public speaking, I'd love to, I never did. I do constellation about it, what appears to be true. Both my parents were teenagers during the Second World War. The war has ended, they want to talk about it, nobody wants to hear it. Everybody wants to move forward. Positivity, all that drama, all the catastrophe, we've all seen it, we all know it, let's move forward. Nobody would listen to their story. What did I do? I took it on and I thought nobody would listen to my story. Interestingly say, I do this constellations, literally 2 days later, I get an invitation to speak at this conference. So, you're my first audience. This is my debut. And so this is what I like about family constellations, because this shows that you can actually change things in the marine field. By changing your energy, things change around us, and we open up space, we open up energy to invite other people in. One thing I need to add, so I started with transgenerational trauma. This can also be done for current situations. If you have questions about your career, your boss, do I need to choose this house or that house? Where do I want to live? We can set up a few countries, maybe a few cities, and you just step into the field and see what feels right and which choice to make. So it's a very versatile and broadly applicable tool to help people get insight and release problems. So, to conclude, so much more than we think can be healed, and it takes away the efforting in behaviour change. It takes away the relapse because we have uprooted the problem. Chronic mental health issues, so-called non-compliant patients, and so-called personality traits, or maybe even personality disorders. I had people who had diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Gone. It's fairly easy, I'd say. If we consider that trauma can be inherited, and in my type of practice, and actually in my personal life as well, it's without exception the breakthrough intervention for anybody. Unfortunately, there are not that many treatment outcome studies, which obviously I'm hoping for very much. Some preliminary research says the treatment outcomes are between 50 and 93%, which I think is not bad considering that the NHS protocol has the highest, it's between 30 and 50%, so not bad, I would say. So through tapping into the cloud of the knowing field by unbiased phenomenological observations, and we get rid of the story, we get rid of the emotions, we just look at the entanglements, we can find them and we can help release them. We release them by humming them back to whom they belong, and by humming them back we can reconnect to what we call the flow of love, and we can resource again and you can pass it on to your children. Family constellations are transdiagnostic and are transcultural. If I have intercultural issues, I just set up Indian culture, I just set up the USSR, I just set up misogynism or patriarchism or something, and it will always give me tools to deal with the issue. There's one golden rule, and I've omitted like a ton of information about this, so there's one golden rule: be responsible for your own fate, and your own fate only. And we feel guilty, you know, if we're happier and healthier than other people, especially our parents. We tend to be as unhappy, as poor, as unhappy in relationships or whatever. But if you think about it, would they want us to be that unhappy? Of course not. Would you want your children to struggle with the same burdens as you? No, you wouldn't. So in that case, just realize, hand it back to them. You're free. You can be yourself, and you can pass on the flow of life to your children as well. And the good thing about this is that compassion follows automatically. You don't need to do anything to be compassionate, because it just comes up, because it frees you up, it connects you to everybody. When you do constellation workshop, you see everybody struggling with the same kinds of problems. Doesn't matter where you come from, if you're old or young, male or female. So compassion is awareness.